All right, we're going to talk about the difference between Japanese and Okinawan Karate in the front stance. In Okinawan Karate, the front stance is pretty narrow. As you can see, my legs are not very far apart, whereas in Japanese Karate, it's deeper. There's a simple way to measure these, and we start with shikodachi. Shikodachi being the sumo stance. Quickest way to measure out a sumo stance is to start with your feet together. You open your feet to 90 degrees, then you pivot on the balls of the feet until you're parallel again, then you pivot on the heels until you're 90 degrees again, pivot on the balls of the feet until you're parallel again. If you sit down in this, you're now in a kibidachi, or an Okinawan style kibidachi. If you rotate on the heels again to 90 degrees and sit down in it, you are now in a shikodachi. Now, Okinawan shikodachi are typically here like this, with the leg at this angle right here. We're not like squatted way down here like this for Okinawan shikodachi. We're up here like this. There are times we'll get down here, but it's temporary in our kata. Mostly right here at this angle. Now, we can shift into front stance and, or the Okinawan front stance and the Japanese front stance from the shikodachi. Let me change up so that I'm going at an angle here. So if I get into my shikodachi here, if I rotate on the ball of the rear foot and kick that heel out and turn forward, I'm now in a Japanese front stance. Going back to my shikodachi, if I rotate on the heel of this foot, in other words, instead of kicking the heel back, I kick the toes forward, now I'm in an Okinawan front stance. Going here from the side like this, if I get into my shikodachi here, I rotate on the heel of the foot, Okinawan front stance. Go back to my shikodachi. Rotate on the ball of my foot. Now I'm in a Japanese front stance. That's simple. That's simple right there between Japanese and Okinawan. Now, in classical Japanese karate, which I know it's hard to say classical since Japanese karate is not even, well, right around 100 years old right now. Okinawan karate, much older. But if you go back, the two were much more similar. And even though the Japanese front stance ended up bigger, the weight distribution was 50-50. Half the weight on the front, half the weight on the back. I've been seeing a lot of memes here lately where they're wanting like 60 to 70% of the weight on the lead leg. This is what we would call a leaning forward stance. Now, just like with the shikodachi, where typically we're here, but we might get down here occasionally, same with the leaning forward stance in Okinawan Karate. We'll go into a leaning forward stance occasionally. So what's the difference? If I turn to the side here, and I get into an Okinawan front stance, typically my knee is over the toes. Okay, let me get over here so you can see the toes a little bit better. So typically, my knees are in line with the toes. In fact, what sensei used to do is he'd line a bow up with your knee and drop it, and if you hit your toes, then your knee wasn't forward enough. This right here would be the common position. We also have a position where we're a little bit higher, where the knee is straight perpendicular to the floor. The leaning forward version would be with the knee past the toes. Again, temporary position. This is the most common. This right here is also once in a while as well. So Okinawan Karate, we have different levels of our stances. Let me show you another example of different levels. So we're teaching some Hakutsuru Kenpon here. When I get into a cat stance, we have cat stance where the heel's actually on the ground. And then we have here where the heel is off the ground by about the height of a big toe. And then you come here a little bit higher here. This would be a high cat stance. Here like this, that I see in a lot of modern karate, this is not an Okinawan thing, this is modern sport karate. Anyhow, those are some differences between Okinawan and Japanese karate. Y'all take care, God bless.